I know weather is pending here, and we'll have another group coming in after you, so we're going to get things going. All right, so good evening, and thank you for coming out and braving the cold and snow. I don't think it's quite as snowy as it's going to be yet tonight. My name is Barb Nelson. This is a welcome to the parents and any students that are here of the class of 2023. I know that seems weird to say even, like it just seems so far away, but I'm sure when your kids were born way back when and you calculated out like, oh, they're going to be the class of 2023, and now they are just a short 4 years away from that. So it's exciting, but it definitely goes fast. My name is Barb Nelson. I have been the 9th grade counselor here for crazy 20 years. I actually am a Pickle Park graduate as well. So grew up in this system, know and love this system, and are here to answer any questions for you as you start this process out. Some of you, just by show of hands, have you had another student come through the high school? So it's manageable, it's doable. How about it's first time family said? Yes, great. I want you to know and feel like we care about this, we want you to be supported in this, and it's one of those things where I feel like it's once you get the system down and kind of get to know it, it's easier than it appears. I actually have a sophomore this year at Maple Grove High School, and then a middle schooler and an elementary student as well in that system. And even for me as a counselor, it's hard to kind of get to know a new system and understand it and try to figure out. I just helped him finish his registration for 11th grade, and it was like, okay, we had to walk through and look for everything. And once you get the system down and kind of know it, you'll be pros. So I give kudos to those parents myself that are coming through again just to hear it again. I actually end up doing the 9th to 10th grade as well, so you get to hear me a lot over the years if you kind of have back-to-back students or kind of come from year to year to listen to this information. So my information is up here, the phone number and email, so if you do have questions, definitely don't hesitate to reach out. We know there are things that you're wondering about or may question even after you go home and maybe talk to your student and kind of are trying to think about class choices and so forth. So feel free to reach out. This is approximately the time though that every year students will be doing is registering for the next school year. And so it's kind of that system we fall into, and everyone always, we used to actually do the middle school really early, like the end of January, so we push them back. We do our in-house 9th, 10th, and 11th graders first, coming up next week, and then we actually now do the 8th graders after that, so they're about a month into the 3rd quarter there at the middle school. And so we have to start this early because there's a whole process that this follows, being able to look at hiring and assigning teachers for the following year, sectioning out department heads, and then building a master schedule for how the school student management system. So all that kind of happens this spring and into the summer, and then we have a schedule ready when your students come as freshmen next fall. So we are doing this today, and then on the 26th is the night that we come back, or the day, sorry, that we, all the counselors come to the middle school and meet with students in their science classes. And we walk them through the process. We give them a little bit more information about the high school in general, answer some questions, go through graduation requirements, and then actually walk them through step-by-step in PowerSchool entering their course requests, and then actually have us hand check all of their course requests before they actually submit them. And they will be in PowerSchool kind of live under the course request, so as parents are ready, you can go back and kind of double check what they did unless there's some question there, and then we'll close that at a certain time, and then if after that time there are some changes that are needed, we would just need to have a conversation or email about that, and we can make any of those changes or updates. There will come a time when that registration obviously is final, because that's what we go through, but know that if there are some slight tweaks, like maybe an adjustment in the math level or a world language level, maybe a student doesn't end the year so well, they want to redo a level, that's certainly something that we'll talk to you about as we finish out the school year. I'll just point out Heidi Cosgrove, who is our senior counselor right now, is in the back helping out tonight, so that's another person at the end of the session. If you do have questions, feel free to talk to her as well. She's the senior in this year's graduating class, so she'll getting another group coming up next year. So I stay with 9th grade, and then the rest of the counselors go 10, 11, 12 with the same counselor as they go through. Just a few things in general about the high school, and we do a big kind of freshman orientation as well as parent orientation in the fall that will go through this as well. Just to give you and your students a little bit more information, we operate on a 7-period day semester system, so while your students throughout the middle school are used to quarters and quarter grades, we transition to a semester system. So their quarter grade at the end of the first quarter is just a progress report of the first semester. It's that semester final grade that counts on their GPA and their transcripts, or their grade point average. So as many times as we say that to them, you can help reinforce that at home, because it's just a new concept that that's the final grade that goes on their transcript. And then second semester as well in June. We are on a system where Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we start at 8:20 and Tuesday, Thursday at 8:40. I know there is a large study going on in the district right now. I'm doing part of that and attending meetings about the school start and end times. So I'm not sure how that will impact this for next year. We had the superintendent come and talk to the department leads, and he said no decisions have been made. He's very clear with us that that's something they're kind of deciding on as they go through this process with community input. So we'll be hearing more about that. We do something where 9th graders are blocked together based on their course selection. So we have teams of teachers in the social studies, English, and science area. Math is separate from that, so they may have a different math teacher each semester. Sometimes we're fortunate that the math teacher is part of that team or block. And so they, if you've had students go through here in the past, it used to be that you had to do all or nothing in terms of choosing honors classes. Now students can self-select into any of those individual courses and be able to still have a block or team of teachers. So there might be a science teacher that teaches the environmental science class, and they take a regular English and maybe a regular civics class. So there's all different options kind of within, and that's what we'll get to explaining and talking about when we talk about that registration sheet. If your student receives special education and they have a case manager at the middle school, that is someone that we work with, or I'll work with on the transition to high school, and we'll look at their course requests after we're kind of done through the process. We'll go back and double check all of those. In some cases, I'm invited to IEP meetings in the spring if there's some transition needs, but we'll work with the families in making sure the correct courses are inputted on the course request. And then I mentioned we'll do the baseball, freshman orientation, parent orientation, and then in the course catalog, if you look around in the course catalog, apparently my mic is not working. Scott's going to fix that for me. I have a loud enough voice for at least a little bit here to last. But I don't know, can you hear? Are you going to be able to hear okay? Yeah. Oh, okay, we'll figure it out. ParkTV is taping right now, so I want to make sure they get their information as well. So if you had a chance to look on the website at all, things have been updated for the 1920 school year with the new course descriptions. If anything has been changed or updated, and all the forms will be updated, as well as this video put on the website there. So that's where you can find a lot of information, and we really encourage you to, that's one of the forms I had out, the 4-year planning form. It's really nice if students are interested in like looking ahead to a 4-year plan. They can look at descriptions of courses that they may be taking kind of into 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So a lot of different options in those upper grade levels. We try to limit at least a little bit what the 9th graders can do for electives, and we'll be getting into that in just a minute. And then there are all different levels of classes: honors, advanced placement, and international baccalaureate. Test. Does that sound better?
So in all those different levels of courses, there are a more rigorous level of coursework. In AP and IB, you have the option, or students have the option, to earn some college credit depending on how they would do on an exam at the end of the course, either 1 year for AP courses, or in some cases 1 or 2 years for IB courses. If that's something you are interested in, especially the IB and the IB diploma program, coming from a school that has the middle years program, normally we would have Jenny Magdal speaking tonight, and she was unable to be here, but we've posted or will be posting online, there are 2 different videos that she has done. One is kind of more of an introduction for incoming 9th grade or 9th grade families about the IB program, and one is an overall look at the IB diploma program. So those would be 2 podcast type videos that you could watch online if you are more interested in that. And there's really nothing coming in as a 9th grader that you would do differently. Some families or students will say, well, it's best to take all honors in 9th grade if you're preparing that route, but we have had students who have taken non-honors courses or non-AP courses in 9th grade and still chosen to go down that pathway as they've gone into the upper grade levels at the high school. So definitely very doable in terms of going on into the upper levels of courses. So again, I know it's throwing a lot of information at you, and I apologize, but we'll try to get through in a quick fashion and answer any questions at the end. We really want to make this an easy, doable process for families to understand as we go through everything. So one of the sheets that was given out, and I think I mailed one with the mailing that went home, and one was sent as well to students today if they received that from their science teacher. I did want to use up copies, but if you'll notice up here, one change we made, it used to have pathways courses that were separated out as an elective offering or requirement, and we really have gone away from that. Those, now you'll notice when it says electives, it'll say 12 credits total in the areas listed below. So under additional electives, the last thing is, or any of the courses listed in the career pathways of study. There's actually a pathways, I'm not sure if I'm just going to flip to it right now so you can see this. So this Pathways of Study grew out of us having an academy program, kind of started a few years back. And so now we've gone more to where these different courses, and this visual is on the website as well. There are different courses in these 5 different content areas that students can take if they're interested in those electives. And we were trying to kind of figure out, students could probably get through high school really without taking any of these if they're taking a world language and a music all the way through and get all their credits with their core classes. But in many cases, they may be interested in some of those different areas to try an exploratory type course. And back when these were developed, they weren't just picked out of thin air. There was a lot of research that went into it, looking at local economic indicators. They talked to businesses, they talked to colleges and universities about what's the kind of job potential, the outlook. And so that's where these different kind of pathways areas came from, and the different classes grew out of that. There also are some options for articulated courses, which means that students, if they complete the class here at or above a certain grade level, and it's different in the different courses, and depending on where it's articulated from, they can actually get credit at a college or university with that articulation agreement. If they set foot on that campus and take a class there, then that credit could transfer with them. So we have had students go through, especially I know like in the healthcare core and health professions terminology, that have finished those and gotten some credits at some of the local community colleges. So some great options for students who may be wanting to explore some different career areas. So that's just one of the big changes in this. Otherwise, we really haven't had huge changes in our graduation requirement for several years. 46 is kind of that magic number that we drill into students' heads. 46 semester credits is what they need to graduate. And as you can see, they can't just take 46 credits in art, for example. They have to take them in the different areas. Specifically in English and social studies, they're taking 4 years of each of those. And then in the math and science area, it's 6 credits or 3 years. And there are prescribed kind of pathways for that. And so you'll see kind of what those are listed up there. With health, we do an embedded health program. It looks like this, where students actually, we fashioned this after they worked with Minnetonka High School, has done this for several years. So health is embedded, and students earn 0.25 of a credit per year to earn 1 credit by the time they graduate. They come out, think of it as kind of fall, winter, spring, for 4 days with the health teacher out of one of the 3 core content areas, and then their senior year they do that in social studies and English, and also do their CPR certification. So the health is more developmental in nature. That what they learn about as a 9th grader is obviously very different from what they talk about as a senior, and so it's a cross the age curriculum that they do. One other thing that I wanted to just show up here, it's going to be a little different. There's another pathways piece that's on the website. This is a little bit more specific to the high school math and all the different breakdowns. So when you're talking to math, and especially coming from the middle school, if there's a question or concern about what students should do, talk to the current teacher. We made a change, I think it's 2 years ago now, it's hard to keep track because there's been a lot of changes, where we have incoming 9th graders take geometry, and you'll see that in the top left there. They can take geometry or honors geometry at the 9th grade level, and then from there, there's some different options as they progress. We know that some students struggle in math, and so there may be a pathway to go into the intermediate algebra after geometry and then on to the advanced algebra, or if students are ready, they go from geometry to advanced algebra and on from there. Some students in middle school have finished geometry or will be finishing, and so they can look to go into some of the advanced algebra or honors advanced algebra classes. So again, it's very individual because kids are kind of all over the place, but know that these are the options. I know there was a graphic in the recent publication that went out for the middle school, and it's a little different, and this is just more specific, like I said, to high school options for math specifically. But I know the teachers there are really good about kind of helping students too. The one thing I would just say, and I'll just kind of jump to this now since we're talking about math, is if your student is considering the honors level in either honors geometry or honors advanced algebra and trig, what the teacher typically does is there's a contract, and kids need to keep up with that in terms of homework and also test accuracy, how they do on those tests. And if they aren't able to keep up with that, they will just be taken out and moved to the regular level of the class, because in math, that curriculum goes really fast and is meant to do that. That's the whole point of it being honors. They're pushing through because they're basically doing 3 years of math in 2 years, because if you'll take that track, you can see from honors geometry to honors advanced algebra and trig, I think I have a little flash here, they really are taking out pre-calculus, which is normally what a student would do after advanced algebra before they do AP Calc. So there's kind of a big leap there, and every year we have several students that want to go into honors geometry, want to go into honors advanced algebra and trig, and I end up changing probably 12 to 15 kids that need to be taken out and put in the regular geometry class. And so typically in the past, what we've used as a recommendation, and there's a recommended RIT score, which is the MAP test kind of score that students get. They used to hold to the 97th or 98th percentile for that math specifically to be able to go into that honors level and be successful. Obviously, there's a whole range of students that are in there, but I just wanting to make you know that that's a pretty intense level of math to kind of keep up with. Phy-Ed, there's 1 credit required. Fine Arts, 2 credits, and there's a list on the website of those credits. And then there's a class called ICL that's required for 9th graders. It's a 1-semester course where students are covering Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint. They're doing things in Google Docs, transferring back and forth, doing classroom presentations, all kinds of different things, utilizing the knowledge that they have earned or used in that class to be able to do some classroom presentations. So that's a 1 semester in 9th grade. And then you'll see there's a college and career readiness. It's 1 credit over 4 years in our advisory program. That advisory program meets 8 times per year. There's an advisory schedule that we have. And so there's a reflection bit that students do as part of that class. And they'll have some different lessons over the 4 years they're here. Again, it's similar. It's 0.25 of a credit per year to earn 1 credit by the time they graduate. And then the electives, again, spread out over all the content areas. You'll notice, we were just talking about this before we started, that world language is not a requirement to graduate, but we kind of quiz the students when we're meeting with them that if students are interested in looking at a 4-year school, the admission requirement is typically at least 2 years of a single second language. If students start a level in middle school and then continue into high school and finish level 2 or 3, it's assumed that they've done level 1. And so, finishing 2 or 3 at the high school is what they would need as an admission requirement to most 4-year colleges or universities. But it's not a graduation requirement. So a student could go through all the way through in world language, have 8 credits there of their electives. If they went all the way through 4 years of music, that's another 8 credits they would have. So it's really easy, like you can see, to kind of accrue those credits. Otherwise, students have a lot of different choices in the different elective areas that are available. This is where you can find that information as I described. So on the website, it's 2019-20, and click on the course descriptions. The pathways, like the math one that I was mentioning, will be listed under each content area. So that's a nice way to kind of look at a 4-year plan idea and see how students can move from kind of year to year in each of the content areas. And we looked at the pathways of study, and then on to the official registration sheet. So we kind of color code these by grade, more so to help keep us organized in the counseling office. So the 8th to 9th is the pink sheet that your students should have gotten today. What we would like them to do is have this with them when they register on Tuesday the 26th in their science class. If they don't have it, am I going to let them register? Yes, we still will get that from them. We're assuming that they're putting in their choices. You obviously can double check that. We would love for all these pink sheets to come back with your signature, knowing that you've kind of had that conversation, been able to go through things and agree on what the student is registering for. But our job when we're there is to get all, I think there's 360 some 8th graders there, to get them registered on that day. I will, if students are absent or happen to be gone, sometimes students leave the sheet with the teacher if they know they're going to be gone, but I will make a return visit to kind of catch any of those students that happen to be absent, and we'll get all those course requests in. So this sheet is kind of what we use to guide them. So you can see on the left-hand side, there are the core content areas, your English, social studies, science, and math. And you're making choices, typically for most students, between the English and honors English. There are some students that might need ELL needs in all of the English, social studies, science, and math, or there might be some special education needs in those areas. And again, case managers at the middle school may help your students kind of register. If you have questions about that, you could talk to a case manager. But in general, most students are selecting between the English and honors English, civics, honors civics, science, and AP, which is the advanced placement environmental science. One note about that, which I will say, I feel like there used to be a lot of pressure on students, what are your friends doing, which obviously is normal, developmentally appropriate, but at this point, and we try to drive this home when we talk to the 8th graders, that it really needs to be an individual decision. They need to be thinking about themselves, where their strengths are. They know what they do outside of school. Some kids are really busy with activities, athletics, whatever it is. So taking all honors might not be the best fit, and you have to kind of be thinking about your grades, how that's going to look on a transcript. Of course, it would look great if you had all honors classes, but if you have C's and D's in all those honors classes, that doesn't look great. And for us, we always get that question, is it better for me to take an honors class and, get a lower grade, or a regular class and get a higher grade? And there's no magic answer to that, but it is a question we hear all the time, and it really is about kind of that tipping point, which, generally we would say like a C+, maybe a B-. If you're going to get below that, it's probably better to take the regular level class. But some kids really want that challenge, and even I have 9th graders who are getting, D's in some of their classes, and they want to stay in those because they want that challenge. Again, as a family, you need to talk about that, have those decisions, talk about balance, because that is the biggest thing I stress. I had we try with encouraging students to make the best choice possible in what they can do well. And of course, we're going to work with students if they get into a course and it's too difficult. But when I'm dealing with the students and they're feeling stressed out, overwhelmed because of all the different courses they've taken, it's really hard on them. So I think, again, thinking that through ahead of time, I think sometimes middle school teachers get kind of caught in a bind, not sure, whether to recommend or not. They want to encourage kids to go into those high-level courses, but not knowing kind of if they're taking all 3 or 4 of those classes. So really have those individual conversations with your student to be able to kind of really look at the big picture. And, kids also can start in regular classes in some cases and then make that step in 10th grade to other honors classes, try an AP class, not having to feel like they have to do it all in 9th grade. And there are kids that are fully capable of doing that. We have the whole gamut that can handle a full load of classes, do activities, but I just caution you to be thinking about that for your family, for your life, for your student, and their kind of sanity as they get ready for high school here. Let's see. And then on the, I think my next slide was just, yes, so kind of the 4 content areas, and all 9th graders will be taking down here, it's checked off the FIED and ICL. And then this is where we would have you date and sign the form. And then the options for electives then are on the right-hand side. And this is where it is a little confusing. So just to clarify, on this right-hand side, there are the 4 different options. Okay, if students do not do a full year of world language and music, they would be having 1 semester of a study hall. That's at least how we have it set up now. We may be asking students, or if I am able to, and they put an alternate in, that we have a place down here. If there is a way to get them into that additional class, we would try to do that. This year we had a situation where we've run really low on electives, so it's been hard, and we really want to try to keep those numbers up, but it's all a staffing issue we work through with our administration here, with our principal making decisions about where some of that staffing money gets spent. And so we'd like students to fill this out, make good choices for the following year based on what they know now and what they're interested in taking. So that option 1 up here, this is if you're going to take a full year of world language, you check the first semester and second semester box and choose the level of language. And then the music, you're choosing a full level of choir, orchestra, or band. So you'll notice on this form, whenever you see 2 boxes, and this is consistent as the kids register all grade levels, when there's 2 boxes, it's a semester 1 and semester 2 listed there. It's a full year course, versus when you get down here and there's just 1 box, those are semester-long electives that could be either first or second semester. Typically how it's run is there's drawing and illustration, or actually it'll be drawing and painting next year, 1 first semester, drawing and painting 2 second semester, but we do end up having some drawing and painting classes, you know, first level 1 second semester, just because of the sheer number and the balancing of the teacher's schedule. So that does happen. So in option 2, if students are taking a full year of world language, then they would select 1 of these electives and have a study hall. And then option 3, they would be doing the full year of music and 1 of these electives and a study hall. And in option 4, it would be selecting 3 of these elective classes and having a study hall. Again, I don't want you to think of a study hall as a bad thing. If students were taking a full load of classes all the way through school, they could earn 56 credits, and you only need 46 to graduate. So there actually is time built in, and what our kind of junior and senior upper level counselors find is kids get to that end, and they kind of figure out like, oh, I'm actually kind of running out of electives. So it's not, that's why we kind of did this on one respect, and we also want, again, students to have that balance and not feel so overwhelmed with 7 classes. So they typically have that 1 semester of a study hall looking at options 2, 3, and 4. There are students, and I'll just throw this out there, it may or may not impact anyone in here. There are students that take 2 musics and don't do any world language, or students who want to take 2 world languages and don't do anything else. So those are all special circumstances, and there's generally not many students. So those are just times where a student may ask me, you can email me, and I'll just connect with them. We'll connect with them at registration. We'll okay it when they put it in their registration screen on PowerSchool, but those are kind of very specific instances. And so in general, most students fall into one of these 4 elective options. And when we work with the students, regular study halls will be placed automatically. They do not need to place them, so they will actually just register for 13 courses. A study hall would be entered automatically. And then on the bottom, what we will do, and there's actually a place they will enter these in PowerSchool, they will give us some alternate choices. So let's say I'm going to do Spanish 1, and I'm going to do, my first choice is pottery here, but I'd be okay with either media arts or drawing and painting. I put those down there. I enter those. What happens in August is I'm back to work a few weeks before school starts, getting ready for orientation, working through schedules, and if there's ever a conflict or we can't fit a certain class in, we will look to their alternate electives to try to get them one of the choices that they had on their course request. If there's not, sometimes I may be calling and say, hey, this is what's going on with your schedule. There's generally some kind of conflicts here and there, but in general, most students can at least get one of their top choices for their electives. With students who are doing that option 1, In almost 100% of cases, we are able to get their world language and music in, so they don't necessarily have to put an alternate unless they're starting a language new, like maybe they're starting Spanish 1 new, and they would be okay with French. That might be an example of a reason to have that alternate elective listed there. So we will work with them again. We kind of, there's enough of us in the computer labs that we're eyeballing what they're doing and making sure it's accurate before they submit it in their course requests. And this is actually what it looks like when kids go in. So we turn something on behind the scenes in PowerSchool, and it opens up this, let's see, class registration little icon here. So when students click on this, it pops up to this screen where they have access to put in all the different choices they have. They're clicking on the little pencil there, and then we will go in and help them again walk through each of those. And it's pretty easy, and it's kind of just clicking the box and pressing submit, going back and doing that for each of the different content areas. Some people have asked, why have we not done this? Just let people do it on their own online. And we actually still, at the high school level, run students through the computer lab, because what we found is there's just a lot less errors and a lot less correcting we have to go back and do. And it's really nice to have a time for kids to access us in a classroom setting where we can individually kind of talk to them, answer questions, work with them that way. So it's been nice for us, and it's hard to let go of that little bit of control of the letting them put the course request in kind of on their own at home or just whenever they can. These are just kind of visuals of that option 1. So this is what a 7-period day first and second semester would look like in that option 1. They'd have world language and the music. Option 2. And then option 3 and 4, just looking through kind of those different options and choices. And usually just at this point, I like to say a little bit about honors. I know I kind of started with that and got a little bit more than I would have with that honors information. But in 9th grade, there's choice of any of 4 classes. So there's honors English, there's honors civics/econ. I didn't put that in there. There's the AP environmental science, or an honors level of math. If you do not choose honors, or your student does not choose honors in 9th grade, it doesn't hold them out of any honors classes as they go through high school. So we're not kind of putting them in a pathway that they have to stay in. They can pick and choose from year to year the honors courses. And a good kind of illustration of that is typically from year to year, when we used to have kind of an application process, there were 3 sections of honors English, let's say, in 9th grade. And then going into 10th grade, we would have 5 sections. So, 60 some more students were making that choice going into 10th grade. And I think our numbers have stayed pretty consistent, that students really self-select into those upper level classes as they go through, and they feel like they want to jump in and be ready to be able to handle that level of a course. So it doesn't hold them out of anything as they go through. Things to consider: when we used to have kind of an application, if you will, process, and we really went through everything, what we looked at were 7th and 8th grade grades. They're usually a good predictor of success if students are getting mostly A's and B's in their courses. And then we would look at their MAP scores in reading and math. So again, 80th percentile was always that kind of marker we looked at. If they were at or above that, again, generally a good indication that they would do well. But that's not to say students who are in the 70s in terms of a standardized test score aren't going to do well, because we know that there's those students out there that work really hard. They like the challenge. They want to be able to do that, and maybe their grades weren't really stellar in middle school, but again, they want to have that challenge. So this has been probably 3 or 4 years now, I to think of my dates, but we've opened up kind of that honors in 9th grade. Students can self-select into individual courses. They don't have to do all. Sometimes students are more science, math type kids, or maybe they're more English, just want to take one class to try it, and again, maintain that balance. That's really what we want them to do, to have that self-selection, that ability to have balance in their life as they go through. So in previous years, like it's mentioned up there, we've had a high number of students who are interested in honors courses, which is great, and we're able to kind of balance that. But again, I just, caution you, it's not super easy. It's difficult on the schedule, because what happened this year, and it just, again, it's numbers as we go through and we're doing staffing. We're staffing the building, and assigning teachers, making sections based on what students register for. So right now I have some really high honors classes or some really low classes just because of students making changes at the last minute and how the numbers turned out. We really encourage you to think about this, make some good decisions. That's why we give you some time to hopefully connect with teachers at that middle school to be able to talk through kind of levels and what you think your student may be able to handle as they come into high school. We would do changes, like I said, we handle that on an individual basis, but really try to encourage kids to stick with something, and really will have, after the first couple days of schedule changes, they only would be able to change at the quarter or the semester for those classes. And if a student goes through the semester, that grade is final, that's going to be on their transcript. So maybe they end up getting a C if they go into Honors English or AP Environmental Science. I would say personally, in my experience as the 9th grade counselor, AP Environmental Science is the biggest one that really kind of gets kids. They really struggle with even that first test, second test, and then they all come down. It's almost kind of, the teachers can predict it. They'll say, you're going to get a group of kids coming down on Friday because they're going to all have gotten their quiz scores back, and kids struggle and get stressed out and frustrated, but it's that learning curve of learning what those teachers expect. It's very independent. They are doing reading guides, study guides on their own, having to read a 12th grade level text, which is an AP, an advanced placement college level course, basically, that they're taking. So I always tell students and for parents as well, make sure kids know what they're going to be studying, because at AP Environmental Science, if you're not interested in it, it's going to be pretty boring to read that material. Personally, I'm not sure that would be my favorite thing, but if they're interested in it, great. And AP Environmental Science doesn't necessarily relate to any higher level science course here at the high school. Kids can take IB Chemistry or IB Biology as they go into the upper level courses. Again, I'm not ripping on AP Environmental Science. I just, again, want you to make good choices with your sons or daughters, to kind of be thinking about that, your student to be thinking about what is going to be most meaningful to them coming into the high school level. And then again, I kind of mentioned that the honors math is that specific contract that the teacher kind of reviews with them at the beginning of the year, and it kind of talks about those specific things as well. At this point, if there are questions, I'll leave my information up there. You can jot down. So if it's easier to just shoot me an email later, that is certainly fine. It'll be 2 weeks from tomorrow that we are in the science classes. So if students have the pink sheet filled out with your signature and their signature on it, that is great for us. It helps it go much smoother. And usually it's a fun day to spend with them, kind of getting to know them. And I just had a student, oh, you came and did this last year with us. And I'm like, yep. So they get to know the system and kind of understand how it works. Hopefully, again, we've given you kind of tools and resources. This video, again, will be posted online if there's things you want to go back through with your student. Hopefully by, I'm not sure how long it'll take, by the end of the week maybe, we'll get those up and on for families to take a look at. But any questions at this point? I know sometimes it's hard to ask in a group, but you feel like would be applicable to the whole group. I can certainly try to answer those. Anything? Yeah. Yes, so he's asking about honors courses and a clarification of test scores. So when we used to have an application for the honors block, which is the 3 classes, civics, science, and English, we used to use 80th percentile or above as kind of our indicator of success. In math, however, what they will look at, and the RIT score is published, and I think it's 245. In math, honors courses, what they will be looking for, what their suggestion is, and usually the number correlates with the 97th, 98th percentile. So math specifically is a higher RIT score in terms of what the math teachers look at kids who are very successful in that honors course and with the pacing that needs to happen. So yes, thank you for that clarification. Yeah. Yep, so she's asking, can kids do, there's only really one course, it's 0 required. So yes, if a student was interested in that, they would just need to talk to us at the registration, because we have a way to put in counselor only and it would add. It's kind of different how that's scheduled. It's scheduled before the day starts, and that's also concert choir, so the student would need to be in contact with the teacher, because most or all 9th graders typically go into varsity choir first, both boys and girls, and then they go in and do the concert choir during their 10th, 11th, and 12th grade year. I did have this year, second semester, some students that transitioned to concert choir. So Mr. Muskowski, students have him at the middle school as well, so they can be having those conversations with him if they're interested in auditioning for that upper level choir. Yeah. She's asking, will world language teachers be giving students the level? I'm not sure if they go through individually, but if your student is doing just fine, they would, yes, assume that they go into the next level. If you're questioning kind of your student's ability and their kind of strength in the language, then you may want to have a conversation, because we have had students repeat, like if they did level 1 at the middle school kind of, and they weren't really secure or solid in their kind of baseline skills, that may be a reason to repeat that. Otherwise, generally, students will go on and just register for the second level. One thing that does happen is both in math, we have middle school teachers and world language teachers do kind of a double check of levels, so they tend to catch some of those things, and we usually wait till early May to have them look through the course list to go through kind of names, or if there's any kids they're concerned about, they might reach out to you as well. So she's asking for option 1 in the electives. No, so they would have 7 full classes if they're choosing option 1. So they have 7 classes first semester, 7 classes second semester. And that's fine. If there is a change that needs to be made, it's just we'll maybe think about leaving the window open, because that would be a good conversation to have, and you could just do it at home then, or you can just email me and we can make those changes quickly. Usually we shut the ability to do that off in the evening, so then kids aren't going in there to change, but we can kind of have conversations with the middle school staff. Is that their school conferences for third quarter? Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. We'll have to plan that. Maybe next year they have that the day before. We're always trying to, with the middle school daily schedule, it's hard. We have to get in there on a day where we can see every class for as much time as we can, and so, and the computer labs are available. Other questions? Oh, yes. She's asking about kind of 9th grade and it being a transition year. I would definitely invite you back to the fall freshman orientation we do, because with the parents, the parent orientation night session, we really go into that a lot more and talk about that. There's a program that's been around in St. Louis Park for 20 years. It's called the BAR program, Building Assets, Reducing Risks. And it all started here in St. Louis Park, and now it's being spread across schools across the country. It's about that piece, that transition piece, and so those teams of teachers I talked about have a group of students that they meet with on a regular basis. There's myself as a 9th grade counselor, and we have a 9th grade social worker that team together and meet with those teams of teachers on a regular basis to kind of make sure that 9th graders aren't falling through the cracks. And our whole intent and intention is to get 9th graders through their freshman year successfully, because all the research shows that if students do that, they're more likely to graduate on time. So Kelly Brown, who's the BAR coordinator here at the high school, will talk a lot more about that in the fall, just in terms of what we do with students. As counselors, it is hard. We do have very high caseloads, and it's really sad. And contact your legislatures, because in Minnesota, we have one of the worst ratios in the country for counselor-student ratios. And so the recommended, I think, is 250. And so right now I have almost 400 students. We have almost 400 in 10th grade. The 11th and 12th grade are a little bit lower, but still higher than what the average should be. And the expectation of what we're supposed to do continues to be raised, and we're doing college and career readiness. Like this fall, I went into all the ICL classes. I will do that again second semester. We do things on them with Naviance student, but we deal with and manage crisis things every day, kind of talking to students, parent consultation, working with teachers. So we try. We do our best to manage, and really it's about if parents reach out to us and or students, we're kind of working with what we can. And it's a great way, the 9th grade program, for us to meet with teachers on a regular basis and get names of students that they might be concerned about. And the whole kind of advisory program that we have set up at the high school, in 9th grade especially, is a way for each advisory teacher to watch over a smaller group of kids on a weekly basis. So if they're seeing concerns or issues in the grades, oh, I'm looking at the time as I'm seeing other people out there, if they're concerned about it, what we hear from them is what's going on, what's kind of been showing up in the classroom, for example. If a student started with A's and B's and now they're down to C's and D's, you know, what's going on? Let's troubleshoot, let's talk about this. So those are all things that we, try to have in place to help students make that successful transition. But if you have other concerns, anyone, feel free to reach out individually to me. I know there's students with 504 plans as well, and I will be in touch with those families in the fall to kind of work through that transition as well. So I really appreciate appreciate you coming out tonight. Hopefully you gained some knowledge that can help you with your students and their registration for high school. We look forward to working with you and seeing them in a couple weeks and then in the fall. So have a good evening and drive safe.